Good afternoon, everybody. We are now going to do part 4 of our Beginning Beekeeper Series. This is the last part where we're going to talk about the types of bees and the types of packages and or nuke you can get. Before we get into that, I just want to repeat that next Wednesday we will start a 4-part series on successful and sustainable beekeeping. One of the things I've heard from a lot of you is you get discouraged or frustrated that you keep losing bees every year. We want to teach you how to keep those bees alive. And it's not that it's terribly difficult. It's just something you have to know how to do. There's probably, I would say, about 7 different things that you have to understand and do to make you more successful in your beekeeping. And that'll be, I think, a pretty productive series for those of you who are currently keeping bees. So we're going to get into today's topic. First, we're going to talk about the bees themselves. What do I get? There are probably 4 common types of bees you can get in either a package or a nuke. And they would be Russian, Carniolan, Italian, and Saskatraz. And each one has has their own traits, pluses and minuses. And I think if I touch on them a little bit, it might help you make those decisions. The first one I want to start with is Russian bees. Russian bees are a little bit of a darker bee. They come from the eastern side of Russia. And they were right next to the Asian honeybee that had varroa mites. So they've been exposed to varroa for a bit. So they're a little bit more tolerant of varroa. Does it mean they don't need to be treated? No. But they do tolerate varroa just a little bit better. And because they come from a colder climate originally, they seem to overwinter better than a lot of bees. Now the downsides to them are they always are building queen cells. And as a beekeeper, it makes you crazy. You think, did my queen die? Is she gone? Why are they doing this? It's just something the Russian bees do. They are probably, out of the 4 bees that we're going to talk about, they might be the slightly more defensive than some of the others. But, they're okay honey producers as well. So that's one bee you can look into getting. The next one I want to talk about are the Italian bees. Italian bees are very good bees for honey production, and they're also known for building up brood very early in the season. As soon as there's a nectar flow, they'll start growing their brood nest, and they'll build a big population fairly soon into this early in the season. And they will continue to raise brood through the season. One thing about Italians, they'll raise brood whether there's a nectar flow or not, a heavy nectar flow or not. And that could be a good thing sometimes, and sometimes it's a bad thing. If they keep raising brood and you leave your honey supers on once the dearth hits, they will start eating that stored honey in your honey supers. So they take a little bit more management when there's no flow. And the other thing they do is that in the wintertime, because they go in with a big cluster, they'll consume more of their resources in the wintertime. So you have to keep your eye on them a bit more to make sure they don't run out of honey as you're going through winter. One of the upsides to Italians is they're not really that prone to swarm as much as some of the other ones. Generally in your first year, they will not swarm. In the second year, they may or may not. That's a management thing, but they're not quite as swarmy. The Carniolans are a great bee. They're a dark bee. Carniolans don't start building brood early in the season, but when they do, their growth is explosive. Being that they're so explosive in their brood growth, that happens right when the nectar flow is on. They tend to swarm more frequently than an Italian bee will. So again, if you get a Carniolan, you have to be aware of that and manage that swarm instinct on the bees. As far as gentleness, they're slightly more gentle than Italians. Italians are a very gentle bee anyway. And the Carniolans are more gentle than that. They're very calm on the comb when you're examining a comb. I like Carniolans. They overwinter fairly well. They can overwinter in a smaller cluster and thereby consuming less resources in the winter. So Carniolan's a nice bee to have if you're looking for those sort of traits. And again, when we pick these bees, look at where you are as a beekeeper. What is your region you're living in? Do you have severe winters? Do you have warm winters? Do you have heavy nectar flows? Do you have one flow in the spring, in the early summer, and you're done? Those are the kind of things you want to take into account when you choose what type of bee you're going to start with. The last one I'm going to talk about is called a Saskatraz. Saskatraz bees are very similar to Carniolans, so a lot of the same traits. They not only are explosive in their brood growth, but they lay a big pattern. They raise a lot of brood. They have more mite tolerance than the Carniolans do, and they overwinter very well, and they're very good honey producers. I run anywhere, it depends on where I am in my beekeeping, between 100 and 140 colonies, and most of my colonies now are Saskatraz. It's the bee that I've been really happy with over the last few years. And I still have some Carnies, I still have some Italians, but I prefer the Saskatraz at the moment. I think they're probably one of the better bees out there. Now, with that said, we always advise everybody that's getting into beekeeping, if you can afford it, start with 2 colonies. And there's a reason. Unless you have a mentor that's going to work with you from the time you get your bees, as a brand new beekeeper, it's very difficult for you to know if your hive is doing well or not. But if you have 2 hives side by side, and you see one is growing really well through the season, doing really well, the other one seems to just be, puttering along and not really expanding and growing, well then you'll realize there's something wrong with this colony, and you may be able to fix it before it's too late. One of the things I see with brand new beekeepers that get one hive and they don't have someone to help them is by the time they realize there's something wrong in this colony, it's too late. And something wrong could be something like maybe they accidentally killed the queen when they were in there, or the queen wasn't mated well and she's laying drones. Just anything like that. If you don't have the experience, you're not going to know it until it's too late. And the problem with things like that is when you make a mistake like that, where you didn't realize something's wrong with that colony, by the time you realize it's too late, now it takes you a whole nother year to get another shot at it. Because we get our bees in the spring, once they're gone, they're gone. So consider that as well. If you are going to do 2 colonies, one of the things you might consider is I've named Saskatraz, Carniolan, Italian, Russian. You might want to get one of one and one of another. And that's another way of seeing which bee you prefer. You don't have to get 2 of the same. They don't fight. They're side by side. Choose a couple of them if you like. And that way you can say, oh, this colony, the Carnies were really calm on the comb. I had Russians. They were a little more defensive, but they made more honey. You can see what you like. It's just a way to quickly figure out what kind of bee you prefer to work with in your area. Otherwise, you're going to have to get one this year, one the next year, and so on. So that's the type of bees. It doesn't matter really what you get. Look at the traits of all of them, see which ones fit your beekeeping needs. When do we get our bees? We get our bees early in the spring. That's when they make packages, that's when they make nukes. So order your bees early. Here at Man Lake, we have bees for pickup, we have bees for shipping. So you can get them, order them. I say get them earlier than later because every year, every package producer, every nuke producer runs out of bees. There comes a certain time when they say, sorry, there's no more. So it's better to order them early and get them, scheduled for delivery at the right time. A lot of the brand new beekeepers, especially up north where I am, I'm here in Pennsylvania, so anywhere probably from the middle of the country north, we can have a very cold spring a lot of times. And when you're getting a brand new package of bees, you're putting them on a foundation like this. It can be a little touch and go to get them going if the weather's very cold. So I recommend you look at your weather and say, oh, by the time, like in my case here, by the 3rd or 4th week of April, we tend to have warmer days. It's going to hit in the 50s usually, and the bees are able to fly and gather nectar. If you don't have drawn comb for those bees, I suggest you get your bees toward the end of the month. If you're an existing beekeeper or a friend of yours is a beekeeper and they gave you a frame or two of empty drawn comb to start out with, you can get your bees earlier in April or whatever the time frame is that way that you can get them. So think about all those things. I'll touch back on that when I get to a nuke because it's important to realize and understand how those bees, what their feed requirements are in a brand new colony. So we're going to talk about the 2 types of packages / nukes we can get. As I said, nuke, package. What's the difference? What's the pros and the cons? First thing we're going to talk about is a nuke. A nuke comes in a box similar to this. It might be a wooden box, might be a box like this. A nuke is a nucleus colony. It's a complete colony, just a small version of it. Typically it's 5 frames of drawn comb. It's got honey stores on it. It's got pollen stores on it. It's got all stages of brood from eggs to pupating bees. And it's got all ages of adult bees from nurse bees all the way up through foragers. And it has a laying queen. It's there queening. She's in there. She's been laying. Very simple to get one of these and install it in your colony. When you get your nuke and you bring it home, it's important, by the way, have this box set up before you bring your bees home. Don't try to set it up or build it the day you get your bees. Have it ready to go. And when we start out, whether it be a nuke or whether it be a package, we're going to start with one box. One box, that's it. We're not going to put 2 on here. So we're going to start with 1 box brand new. We're going to bring this home, and we could probably, for this one, you can light your smoker, wear your veil and wearing your gloves. Light your smoker. You don't need to smoke your bees a lot. And we're going to install this nuke into our hive. So the first thing we do is we need to remove some of these frames. Since this is a 5-frame nuke, I'm going to take 5 frames out of this hive. And all I'm going to do is gently smoke these bees a little bit. And I'm just going to take each frame out and put it in here in the order that I take it out here. I'm going to put these 5 frames right in the center as they come out. So we're going to have frames with bees on them, frames with honey, and we're just going to put them in the colony as we get them. Get all 5 in there. The other 5 frames, or if we're using, in this case, we have an 8-frame box. The other 3 frames are probably going to be foundation. That's fine. And we should put a feeder on. Even though they've come with some of their own resources, capped honey, we want to consider a feeder. I'm going to use an in-hive feeder, a frame feeder they call this. I will explain why when we get to packages. But we're going to get everything in that colony, and we're just going to close it back up. We're going to put the inner cover on it, the outer cover, and let those bees alone for a while, let them get used to that new colony, let them get raising brood. I typically, on a nuke, I might check it again in a week and just see how it's doing. But I will always have feed on it. Now, it depends. When I said in-frame feeder, again, where do you live? If I put this nuke in, install that nuke into this hive, and it's April and we're in Florida, I can use almost any feeder out there. If I'm up north in Pennsylvania, Vermont, New York State, Wisconsin, I'm going to use something like this. And again, we'll talk about this a little more when we get to the package bees. So that was a nuke. What are the pros and cons of nukes? Nukes, the pros, it's a complete colony. You've got a laying queen, all stages of brood. You've got honey stores, pollen stores. It will produce honey for you most likely that year you put it in, that spring you put it in. What are the cons? Generally, you will get a nuke later in the season than you can get a package. Packages you can get very early April. Some places you can get them late March. Nukes, typically, you won't get a nuke until the beginning of May or later. So just a timing thing, and the cost. Because it's a fully functional colony, this will cost you more than a package will. For this, probably $50 or more expensive than a package. But either one's fine. For beginner beekeepers, this one's probably easier to install. But if you do the right things with the feeder and whatnot, I actually prefer these because as a brand new beekeeper, you get to see everything, how it happens right from the get-go, how things progress. So I tend to steer people toward packages for their first bees. So now we're going to talk about a package. What is a package? A package is 3 pounds or 10,000 bees in a box like this. With a queen and a syrup can. I actually misplaced the Here it is. This is typically the queen cage you get in here. It'll have a queen bee in here, and this will be suspended in this package of bees, hanging in there, and this syrup can will be down in here. Because these bees, when they come from wherever this package was made, they're shipped to wherever you are. These bees need to be fed. So this syrup can keeps them alive in transit. The queen is in her own cage, and you've got 10,000 bees in here. And usually they're in here almost like a V shape. They're all up at the top here, hanging around this syrup can and that queen cage. Now you might ask, why is the queen in a cage by herself? When they make a package, the big bee yards that produce packages, they go down through the row of colonies and they shake bees into these boxes from multiple hives. The queen, they've raised that queen over in a queen rearing yard where they raise thousands of queens and have drone colonies set up for mating. That queen is not from the colony where these bees came from. These bees know their queen. Their first instinct with this new queen would be to kill her. So we put her in this cage basically for her protection. Now we hope on the transit, on the way out to you, that these bees are starting to feed that queen and get her pheromone. Her pheromone is passed throughout this entire group of bees via touch. Because bees feed each other, clean each other. So as some of the bees start to feed her, they'll get her pheromone and they'll pass it to the other ones. But we're not sure that she's been accepted yet. So when we get this package, the way we install a package is as follows. We get this package, again, we have one box ready. We don't use two boxes, same as the Nuke. We use one box to install our bees. We're going to get this package and get ready to install. We're going to have this hive ready. We're going to remove 4 to 5 frames out of this box so we have room to put the bees in. We're going to have a spray bottle filled with sugar syrup. The sugar syrup is 1 part white table sugar. Don't use anything but white table sugar. 1 part white table sugar, 2 parts water, room temperature. In a cheap spray bottle you can get from Lowe's or the dollar store, anywhere like that. We're going to have that ready. We do not need our smoker for a package. Now I will tell you, this is going to, if you see these online or you think about what you need to do, you're going to be overwhelmed and think, oh my God, I got to do all this stuff. When you actually do it, you're going to go, that's it? That's all there was to it? It's very, very easy. Just a few things. We get this package. We've got our bees in here. They're all clustered at the top in that V shape. We're going to take our spray bottle. We're going to spray this side. We're going to spray it for probably 5 to 10 seconds. We're going to turn it around and we're going to spray it this way, both sides. And what that does is it coats those bees with that sugar syrup. They start consuming that syrup, and it's also on their bodies and their wings, so they're less apt to fly, and they're filling their honey stomach with that sugar water, so they're kind of full. They don't want to fly, they don't want to sting you. So we spray them like that. After we're done spraying them, we want to give them just a gentle tap, because our queen is in here. We just want to tap them a little bit to knock them down to the bottom, so they expose a lot more bees, and we're going to spray them again. Give them another spray when they're down on the bottom. So we've got these bees sprayed, they're down on the bottom, most of them. Now we're going to remove this syrup can in the top. We're going to take that out. So we remove that syrup can and set it aside. Now our queen is in here. So we just reach in and we pull our queen cage out, and because this is open, we want to have something ready to set over top like this, just so the bees don't start crawling out. We're going to take a look at this queen. The queen should be moving up and down in this cage. She should be very lively. And if she's not, whoever you get the package from, let them know right away. We will replace any queen like that immediately. So you take that queen out, and we're going to put her in here, into the hive. So I like to put her in the back 1/3 in the middle of the colony. I'm going to take this one out for a reason. But I will put her in here. You see there's a screen on this. We're going to put it so the screen faces toward the front of the colony. And the important thing is usually they have some sort of attachment here to hold this queen cage in place. We want to make sure that we have that attached so this does not fall down to the bottom of the colony, roll anywhere, because if it does, it always lands screen down, and that queen will die. So we want to make sure we attach it. I've even taken them where I've taken a staple gun and stapled this strip to that wooden frame, or a piece of duct tape to hold it in place. We don't want that to move. Like I said, the back 1/3 of the colonies where I put them. So now we've got her in place. We come back and get these bees. Again, we don't need to smoke them. We remove the cover that was on here, and now we want to shake some bees in here. Now this particular bee bus does have a door on it on both ends. You can pry it open with your hive tool and open this, but the wooden ones you may get do not. Those you have to do it. This method is the only way, shaking the bees in. But this one you can shake them as well. You don't have to open the door if you don't want to. What we're going to do, our queen is right here. I'm going to turn this upside down and I'm going to shake, probably 2 cupfuls of bees right on top of her queen cage right there. I want those bees to cluster over her. Then I'm going to turn and I'm going to shake the rest of the bees in here, as many as I can out of here. Now, honeybees are very hardy. They're very, they're not little dainty things that you're going to injure by shaking them in here, because you're going to shake them, and at some point, none are going to come out. No more are going to come out. Most of them are in here, but there's still a couple hundred in here. You can take this and just do this. If you wrap it on the ground, and then shake more in. You're not going to get them all out of here. You're only going to have, maybe 50 to 100 or so left in here. That's fine. All we have to do is lay this right next to the hive on the ground, and those bees will come out and crawl in here. One thing I do want to caution you on, and this depends on where you live, I do never use this method. I've seen it recommended, I've seen people do it, and I've seen people have disastrous results from it. They will tell you you can put your queen in here, and you can just leave the bees in here and set this down right inside the colony. If we had a frame out of there, we could put this right down in there and then close it up and let the bees crawl out. The problem with that is when we have cold weather, those bees, number one, the queen's pheromone is still in here. So those bees a lot of times won't come out of here. They will stay in here. And being they're in here, now they've got no food in here. So if we get a cold snap, and a cold snap for bees is 55 degrees. Once it's 55, they start going into cluster. They're not apt to move very much. They're going to be in here. This queen that we put in this frame, she's going to be all alone here. They're both going to die because she's not being fed by these bees. These bees have no feed, and they're going to die. And I've seen it happen several times. My recommendation when you install something like this is that we put a feeder of some sort on. So when I've got all these bees in this colony, and I've got my other frames, when you put the frames in, after you've dumped the bees in, there's going to be a pile of bees in the bottom here. You can just gently brush them aside, kind of smooth them out a little bit, and set these frames in. And these frames might sit up like this. The bees will gradually move, and these frames will sink down. It's fine. The bees are fine. And I'll even put my inner cover on, and I'll prop it up until those bees are all down, because we've dumped some on the queen. There's a pile up here. We just gently put it on there, and the bees move out of the way, and it'll gently settle. But before we do all of that, we're going to put this feeder in. We're going to fill this with syrup. This is called a frame feeder. It's got what's called a ladder in it, 2 ladders. The bees can crawl down there, get syrup, and come back out. The reason I say that is when we install a brand new package into a brand new colony where we have no drawn comb, there's no feed, no food stores in here for them. They need a lot of syrup to start building comb. Comb is where the queen's going to lay eggs. It's also where they're going to store food for themselves. It's what they're going to cluster over. So we want to get them making comb very quickly. So we want to have syrup as close to that bee cluster as we can. Remember, 55 degrees, they're starting to go into cluster. They're not going to move very much. If we use a Boardman feeder, which a Boardman feeder goes on the entrance like this, that's a fine feeder when the temperatures are warm and the bees are moving. They will starve up in here if it's cold and we have a Boardman feeder here. So we want to start in chilly weather. We want to start with a frame feeder, keep it full. Very important to keep that full because these bees need to be fed, like I said, constantly. If you have that frame feeder right there next to where the queen is, a frame or 2 over from where she is, where all those bees are, they can feed when it's light outside, when it's dark outside, when it's cold outside, when it's rainy outside. any of those things, they still have food right there where they need it. That's the way to get the best start. Now, with our queen, when we do that, we get that feeder in, everything's set to go, our bees are there. By the way, the bees, some will be flying around. They are not going to try to sting you. They're disoriented. You'll see that you'll have some right on the front entrance, and they'll be out there fanning with their Nasonov gland open. They're sending out a pheromone to tell those bees flying around, this is our home. And gradually, they'll all go in the colony. There won't be any flying, they'll be in there. Now, we put this queen in here. She's alive. This queen, if these bees are feeding her, she could live for a month or more in this cage. So there's no rush to let her out. One of the biggest mistakes we see in brand new beekeeping is they'll get this package today, they'll do exactly what I told you just now, and the next thing they want to do is let this queen out, and those bees kill that queen. Take your time with this. I usually let my queens in this cage 3 to 5 days before I let them out. Now with queen cages, well, so when we put this in, we're going to close it up. We're going to walk away 3 to 5 days. We're going to do nothing but make sure there's always feed on those bees. We're going to come back 3 to 5 days later. We're going to gently open this colony. We're going to take a frame out so we've got room to work. And we're going to find this queen cage and take it out. And we're going to look. She'll still be alive. This particular queen cage has one cork in it in this end with no candy. So this queen, if I take this cork out, she can get right out and she can fly. She hasn't been fed well. Hasn't been laying eggs, so she's pretty slim and she can fly. If I just pop this cork out standing up, she would fly away. The way that I do this particular type of queen cage is I have a little mini marshmallow ready. I have my penknife ready with it open. I take it and I watch that queen. When she runs, I have the tip of my knife in this little cork, stuck in that cork. When she runs down, I pull that cork out and I quick put my finger over the hole. That queen will not sting you. She doesn't sting us. She only stings other queens. So don't worry about that. Just put your finger over it. Then I take that little mini marshmallow I had. When she runs down the bottom again, I move my finger and stuff that marshmallow in there. Then I could put this back in there. I could put it in here. I could lay it on the bottom board underneath, inside, however I want to do it. Those bees will chew that little mini marshmallow. They'll have that chewed out within a few hours, and they will let her out. She'll get out. So that's the best way to do it. There's other queen cages you may get. This is called the California queen cage. There's something called the Jay-Z Beezy that has a candy tube on it, similar to this. This is a Benton queen cage. It's called a 3-hole or Benton queen cage. This white that you see is fondant. That's candy. That's what feeds the bees. It's got 2 corks. One on this end that goes directly into where the queen is in here with her attendants. This kind of cage, they send the bee with attendants to take care of her. I prefer the California, but they both work. This side has fondant in it, the white. So when I would do the exact same thing when I installed the queen as I did with this one, but when I come back to let the queen out, I would look at this one. If you're an experienced beekeeper, you could take the cork out over it that has no candy on it. You could take that cork out and direct release the queen. I don't recommend that for people who are just getting into bees or have only been doing it for a year or so. Take the cork out from the candy side, and you put the candy side down, and you put the queen cage back in there. You put it back in between those frames. And you might not be able to get all the frames back in here because that queen cage is kind of a little bit wider than the bee space. That's fine. You leave a frame out. When you come back later, a couple days later, and you take it out and she's out, well, then you can put that last frame in. Now, what I said about letting the queen out, if you're going to come back and do this with the marshmallow, you could actually do the marshmallow with this one too if you wanted to, but since it's already got candy, I'd say use the candy in. You can come back in a few days and take that cage out of there, and that's all you're going to do. Take that cage out and close that colony right back up. You don't even have to do it then. But we're going to leave that hive alone for 10 days. If you disturb your hive too soon or too often in a brand new colony like this, there's a chance that those bees will do something we call ball the queen or kill the queen. 10 days we wait. We come back in 10 days and we want to make sure that everything in our hive is good. How do we do that? Well, we know that when a queen lays an egg, it's an egg for 3 days. On the 3rd day, it hatches and it's a larva. It's a larva for 6 days. After the 6th day in its larval stage, it gets capped and starts to pupate. So when I come back to this colony, and it's a brand new colony, so we know they didn't have a lot of time yet to draw a lot of comb. I know that this outside frame is not going to have any wax on it, most likely. So I'm going to take this frame out. There might be a few bees on it. We can look it over, make sure the queen's not there. There shouldn't be any, and we'll set it aside. Then we're just going to give ourselves some room to move this way until we see a frame with some drawn comb on it. And I'll pull that to the side. If this is the one that has the drawn comb, I'm going to take it out and I'm going to look at it. All I'm going to look for is that pearly white larva in a cell. Being that some of that will be almost 6 days old, it's going to be the size of a pencil eraser, so it's easy to see. You know, you're not going. I don't expect you to be able to see eggs right off the get-go. You know, it takes a while to learn what an egg looks like, a bee egg, and be able to recognize it. But you can see that larva, pearly white inside a cell. Once you see that, you know you have a queen. So you don't have to do any more. Don't think you need to find that queen. You don't. So now we're 10 days in. We see that we have a queen because we see that brood. We let them alone for at least another week or so till they really get established. Keep that feed on them. And you can go back, a week or two later and then start. That's when you get into your normal hive management as the season goes on. But all we were covering today is what kind of bees, how to put them in, and what to do for the first 10 days after we put them in. And that's all. So if you have any questions, put them on, put the questions there. We will get them answered for you. As I said, we're having another series starting next week on sustainability for existing beekeepers. Brand new beekeepers can watch it too. It might save you a lot of mistakes in the beginning. A couple of points: make sure you order your bees sooner than later. Think about where you live, when you want to get your bees, whether it's say early in April, end of March, early April, or whether you want to wait toward the end of April, or if you're in a really, really cold area, you may choose to say, I'll wait till May and get a nuke. Up to you. Think of all that stuff. Look at the queens. What kind of bees do I want? By the way, when you get a package, you might have an Italian queen in it. No telling what the bees are. They don't do it that way. It's the queen that determines what kind of hive it is. Within 60 days of you getting, say, a package or even a nuke, all those bees will be what that queen is. So thanks again for joining us. Any questions, put them up there. We will get them answered for you. And hopefully you have a productive bee year this year. Thank you.